Louis Dangoor here from GiveMeSport for a special edition of the Turnbuckle Talk podcast coming out of I'm sleep deprived beyond belief, but coming out of a crazy 2 days of WrestleMania, joined by Ash. We'll be diving into all things WrestleMania, the biggest talking points, and there is a lot. Just really dissecting what was a crazy 2 nights of wrestling. But Ash, how are you? How's your sleep been the past few days?
Not too bad, yeah. My children prevented both nights, so I sort of had to pick and choose my nights watching. So I stayed up the first night and took in all because I found with the last 2 nights, the first night is the night you should be staying up for. Because I think fans get like that novelty factor of being at WrestleMania. I think you get the fan reaction isn't as crazy the second night. Obviously, I was wrong because the second night was just as good as the first night. I think WWE pitched their 2. I think they got the 2 nights right for the first time. Like I think the last 2 years, obviously there was the caveat of COVID and all that, but I think they struggled to keep the momentum up. But I think over the 2 nights, they really, really did pack a punch. As I said to you before we were recording, I was thoroughly sports entertained.
That's the big thing. It was like a very sports entertainment heavy show, and that is not a bad thing.
WrestleMania.
Exactly. And I think some people go into WrestleMania expecting the best matches, and that's not always what we get. We sometimes get some great matches, but that's not what we get. But you cannot deny the spectacle of WrestleMania. It is just the most impressive kind of thing. And we'll be diving into the whole thing kind of chronologically from night 1 into night 2, giving our thoughts. And obviously night 1 started on a bit of a sour note, unfortunately. Rick Boogs suffered quite serious injury, torn quadriceps and patella tendon during his tag team title match, teaming with Shinsuke Nakamura to take on the Usos. The Usos retained. Reports state that was always the plan. So the plan didn't have to be changed. Just the match kind of had to, the finish had to be brought forward. For me, this wasn't like a WrestleMania opener. It didn't feel that way. It kind of felt like a SmackDown match in a way. And I'm sure that I quite like the Bloodline bookending the show. So opening night 1, closing night 2. But I wasn't the biggest fan of this one. I just think it was fine. It wasn't offensive, but just it wasn't kind of your hot WrestleMania opener that you might want.
Yeah, because they've tended over the last few years to open big time, haven't they? Like they've opened with a title match or something massive to really get the crowd going. And I know there were reports in the week leading up to it that it was going to be Bianca and Becky that kicked off the show, which would kind of have made sense because you want that hot opening. Although it's rather old school. Like if you think back at the really old WrestleManias from the 90s, like that was what they did. It was like get a hot tag team match to open the night, and to the credit, they did that again night 2, which we'll talk about later. But I don't know if it was the injury to Rick Boogs or whether, I don't know if there was a real belief anyway that Shinsuke and Boogs were going to beat the Usos, given how strong they are at the moment and part of the bloodline. And it's going to take a real, I want to say proper team, with no disrespect to Boogs and Shinsuke, because I don't think that's what they are. I don't think they're a tag team that are going to be tag team champions and beat the Usos. So maybe that suffered. I think, I know he got bumped in the end, but having the New Day versus, I think they're called My Heritage now, I believe. That's what I've seen on Twitter. Of that opening, that may have been a bit more of a hot opener because you've got the Big E factor and stuff, but obviously go that way. So, yeah, it was a kind of it was like a slow opening to WrestleMania, but fairness, if we're going to pick it, the shows, that is one of them. There's the only one thing probably we could pick that running order wise, I think they got it bang on most of the weekend.
I was going to say it differs on what way you want to do it. Some wrestling shows that I've seen, you put your filler in the middle almost.
Yeah.
You open hot and you end hot, but some you kind of look to build up, and that is what they did with WrestleMania, or at least tried to do. And like you said, I think the running order was pretty good overall. I think a lot, and we'll get into talking about the main event and what was the right choice and what wasn't the right choice. But yeah, for me, I like you. I think there could have been better options for this, but it wasn't offensive by any means. It wasn't bad. And obviously, thoughts go out to Boogs, wishing him a speedy recovery. I know you and I have both interviewed him. He's a great guy, a real character, and I'm sure. Well, I hope he will be fine. I'm sure he will be. Fingers crossed for him.
You got his WrestleMania opening though, didn't he? And you got the Pat McAfee dancing on the table, which is very, again, I think we're going to use this term a lot. is very sports entertainment, and Pat McAfee probably one of my MVPs of the weekend anyway, regardless of this match. So you kind of suppose you got that, but yeah, I think it was one question I had on the whole weekend.
Yeah, and next up was Drew McIntyre and Happy Corbin, which, to their credit, they haven't had a match and they've been feuding for 6 months, which is rare. Yeah. It's pretty rare. I know it's again a low bar to be hitting, but fair play. The match was good. I think Drew worked really hard. Corbin is no slouch either. He's a very, very solid hand. I thought the match was decent. Drew McIntyre being the first person ever to kick out at the end of days, which is one of the most protective finishes in wrestling, was really cool. That was a great spot. I did enjoy this match. And then the post match, you had Drew McIntyre just slashing the ropes with the sword, which was a cool spot.
Yeah,
it was like, the thing is, if that was any other weapon, he'd have hit someone with it by now. Yeah. If it was a chair or a sledgehammer or something, he would have hit someone. But he can't actually hit someone with a sword. So I think that was the best we were going to get in that visual. It was a bit weird, but a bit cool. I didn't really mind it. Yeah, but this match, kind of like the Rick Boogs, Shinsuke Nakamura and Usos match, it was a little bit like, okay, if that main event of the SmackDown, I wouldn't be surprised. If you just to show me the match, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'd probably say that happened on SmackDown as opposed to like second match on the card of a WrestleMania.
I think they needed to achieve two things in this match, didn't they? They needed to get someone to kick out the end of days, as you mentioned, and they also needed to get this feud done. I think the problem with Drew coming back when he did, there clearly wasn't a real path for Drew, where most fans, because we've seen all the criticism online that came with this match, that, oh, really? Drew's in that match? Because he's been in the last two WrestleManias, obviously in big WWE Championship matches. It does, in some ways, probably feel like a step somewhat down for Drew and his trajectory on the main roster. But I think it achieved something. It ended the feud, because I can't see, and I really hope it doesn't continue now. Because, like you say, it's been 6 months; they've hardly touched, and I think they've done well to keep some interest in it and keep them off each other. And the kick out of the end of days it gave a big pop in the arena, which they needed to do. They made it clear. I think it's the first time Corbin's been pinned this year as well. Not that I know. I think I saw that somewhere online, and not that I know how many matches off the top of my head he's had in 2022. But again, that's something. They keep Corbin pretty strong most of the time. So I think it's a big win for Drew. There's clearly more ahead. And he hasn't touched Roman Reigns yet. And I'm sure that's going to be a plan at some point, because many people are now going to question who's next for Roman Reigns, which I'm sure we might get into a little bit when we talk about it on Sunday night. But Drew's certainly in that conversation. So he's been built up. He's got the WrestleMania win. I think it's time everybody moves on and it's done the job that it kind of needed to do.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about it, as you say, later, but Drew McIntyre is an interesting one. It seems like he is being primed for Roman Reigns. And I think a lot of what they do will depend on what happens with The Rock. Like, if The Rock isn't a viable option for WrestleMania 39, I could see that being Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, it could be.
If he is, maybe you push that one forward or whatever. I think it very much depends on what WWE wants to do. But we will get into that, all of that, when we talk more about Roman Reigns later on at the end of night 2. But next up was the first of the celebrity matches, and there were a few. Yeah. It was Logan Paul teaming with The Miz to take on the Mysterios. And got to be honest, a lot of people don't like Logan Paul for his character, what he's done outside of the ring and in his world as a YouTuber. But you would be lying if you said he wasn't tailor-made for WWE.
Oh, totally.
He is detestable. He's got the charisma. You want to hate him. And he took to this like a duck to water. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was really, really good, soaking it up with the crowd, hitting the Three Amigos, hitting the frog splash, both of which were delivered really well. It was. What did you think kind of about Logan Paul and his performance? Before we start talking about kind of the end of the match, which could give away what WWE might have in store. But for this match in particular and kind of how Logan performed, what was your verdict?
Yeah, I think, Bad Bunny obviously raised the bar, didn't he, last year when it came to celebrity involvement in terms of on a serious edge. Johnny Knoxville is a different world, which we'll talk about later. But when it comes to performing in that sort of tag team role alongside another superstar in a match that's semi-serious, I think Bad Bunny raised the bar. But the thing Logan Paul's got definitely above Bad Bunny is that kind of charisma and hateability, which isn't a bad thing in the wrestling world. It's like, if you can be hated, then you're halfway there, because some people can't manage it. So, but he was, like we say, the Three Amigo spot and the shaking of the shoulders as he was on the top rope, the heat in that stadium, I could feel that through my TV. It was amazing. So I think he did really well. I think they've done well with pairing him with The Miz, who's clearly has had a lot to do with it, with Ray, who there's probably not many smoother competitors in the business than Rey Mysterio. So you're going to go out there and have no troubles with who he's battling against. Even Dom, who's a part of that fold as well. So I think he did, extremely well, to the point where I was going into the match going, I'm kind of into it, celebrity thing. But by the end of it, I was kind of, I was wanting to boo the guy, and I was into it. He did well. I was really impressed with what Logan Paul. I won't be surprised that he's sticking around for a bit now either.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously they picked up the win. The Miz got the pin. And after the match, they were celebrating The Miz and Logan Paul. And The Miz hit Logan Paul with the skull-crushing finale. And it looks like that could be a match we get in the future, either WrestleMania Backlash, or if Logan wants to take time away and come back at a later point, maybe a SummerSlam or something like that. The issue I have with it is kind of what you were just saying. By the end of the match, you wanted to boo Logan Paul.
Yeah.
And they did well with that. He is a heel. Like, people aren't going to warm to him. But by that, I can't see The Miz being the face. So it would be it'd be Logan Paul being the face, which for me just won't work as well. Do you think that's a potential misstep? And do you think when do you think this match happens? Do you think we see Logan Paul on Raw tonight?
I think it'll be WrestleMania Backlash. I think this might be a deal that they've done with him as part of whatever package that they put together for Logan Paul. That's going to be a one-on-one match with The Miz. But that was my first initial thought. Like, when I saw that happen, I was kind of like, okay, good twist. Didn't see it. I thought it was done really well when Miz used his acting chops, I guess, to look at him, and he kind of thought, oh, hang on, what's going on here? And he did the skull-crushing finale. I thought it was great and a nice twist. But yeah, I'm like you. These two guys are first grade A heels, both of them. Like, I know Miz can do babyface, and I think in that run he had with Shane, whenever that was 2 years ago, I thought he was better than many people thought he could ever be as a face. But I don't think you can turn that around that quickly to suddenly him be and he's the one that's on the turn. So so the follow-up will be interesting, because I'm like you, I'm kind of, how they're going to play this. I don't understand it. But the one thing I didn't know about, and as well about Logan Paul, the fact he was wearing like the most rare Pokemon card.
$6 million.
One, I didn't know that Pokemon cards were worth that that much money. Pokemon world, I am anywhere near a brief to. But yeah, things like that. He's a heel. You can't try and turn him babyface in this kind of. So it'll be an interesting swerve, because even in the backstage interview he's done, where he used quite expletive language actually for WWE. I'm not sure if that's a way of face act. So interesting.
It's difficult, and like you said, I think he is naturally a heel. It will be better as a heel, but maybe, and this is me kind of just thinking, maybe WWE thought, okay, he's going to do well, and fans might warm to him. I don't really know. It'll be interesting to see how the crowd reacts tonight on Raw, if he is there. Obviously, nothing's been announced as of yet. But yeah, like you, I was impressed with Logan Paul. I thought, and we'll get talking about it, the celebrities across the show really did well, and I'm going to throw Pat McAfee in that boat as well. I know he's not he's involved with WWE more than the other two, but he is kind of your more mainstream star that did something else elsewhere, then came into WWE, and he was great. But we'll get on talking about all of that. Next up was, for me, and I don't know about you, my match of the night, and my match of the whole weekend, really. Okay. Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch. It was brilliant. It was so good. The video package beforehand made it look like this feud, and this feud has been going on since August, but it made it look like this was always the plan. The video package team WWE's got is just unrivaled. And this whole kind of match was centered around, it was different to the Sasha Banks one last year, which was very much about Bianca Belair. And this was too, but it was more back and forth. And it just felt like two long-standing rivals sharing the ring on the biggest stage, kind of what all fans want WrestleMania to be, where your two biggest stars go head-to-head, settle their blood feud, the babyface wins, everyone goes home happy. And that is what this match was, essentially. It was all about Bianca Belair. Becky Lynch had her own doom, was brilliant as the heel. I really enjoyed this match. There was some great point in this match. I was watching with my brother. I turned to him and I said, I think Bianca Belair may be like the best athlete WWE's got, regardless of gender. But yeah, I really love this match. And for me, it was easily match of the night and quite possibly match of the weekend.
Yeah, it's boring when we agree on these sort of things, but it's hard not to. I'm with you. I think it might possibly be the match of the needed because I love them both. I think they're both brilliant, both in terms of character and the character work they've both done in the sort of build to this has been amazing. I think we've seen a new side to Bianca Belair, a bit more vicious, a bit more personal, which was really nice. I think Becky's killed it as big time Bex. I questioned if she could be a heel when she came back and thought, no, she'll never do it. She'll never make, that transaction. She's too well loved. And I think there's still an element that we will love her really, but she has made that heel persona her own now as big time Bex. And like you say, it all came together. I think the best WrestleManias and this is definitely an example of it this year, are like an element, like a recipe. They have different flavors and different like that. And you need one of these matches. You need a feud that's gone on since August. We've gone back and forth on it, and whether it was the final plan or not, we'll never know. But it's had a long-term build. It's got personal. It has your classic heel. It has your classic babyface. And on the night, which sometimes it doesn't always happen, but it did here, they really knocked it out of the park in the ring. Like the 450 splash by Bianca, that move in the corner where she dropped her onto the, like it was kind of like the KOD, but kind of not at the same time, but onto the corner of the ring, which was really something I hadn't seen before. Becky coming off the top rope as well, doing some things I've never seen her do before. I just thought it was a sensational. If that Stone Cold hadn't happened, that main evented, I'd have no issue with that being the event of the show because I thought and the right person won as well. Yeah. So
Agreed.
No bad things to say about it. I think it was first class.
Yeah, and I think like you, I mean, we can get talking about kind of the main event later when we touch on Stone Cold and what was right. But like you, I think if this main evented over Stone Cold, that would have been a mistake because of Stone Cold. But if Stone Cold wasn't on the show, I definitely think they should have main evented it. It was brilliant across the board. Really impressed with everything that Bianca did, that Becky did. Really excited for what happens next with both. What happens next with Bianca and her kind of title.
Bailey? You'll see Bailey tonight. Do you think that's where we're going to go?
I hope so. But kind of, I think Becky would take some time away.
Yeah,
which is probably good. Because I don't know what she does next, but I think it's going to be a slow babyface turn for her, and then she faces Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania next year, who should be a heel, by the way. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was just a brilliant match. It was really, really good. I'm cautiously optimistic for what WWE does with Bianca. I think there are options with some really exciting feuds with Asuka and Bailey, and she is good. And for me, she is the first woman that WWE has treated on the level of the Four Horsewomen, along with Ronda Rousey. But she was always going to be that case. Asuka didn't really. She was kind of always felt like maybe there was a chance. I mean, she's beaten Charlotte several times. She's beaten Becky Lynch several times, but it never felt like it was always stop-start. But with Bianca, to be fair, pretty much since she debuted 2 years ago, it was a little bit sticky for a while, but for the last 18 months, she really has been kind of one of WWE's top female stars, and she has really cemented herself as one of the best, maybe even ever, in WWE in terms of what she can do in the ring. She's beloved by fans, so really happy for her. She's great, and I hope that kind of this run, if whatever happens, is good to her.
Yeah, well, I mean, what better back-to-back WrestleMania for somebody to beat Sasha Banks in the main event of your first WrestleMania, then beat Becky Lynch in your second. I mean, that's a good start. I mean, I've just done a piece for GiveMeSport about WrestleMania 39. I put her with Charlotte Flair because I think that's, she's made no secret about the fact that she wants to pin all four horsewomen, which she's done 3 of them. Granted, Bailey was not at WrestleMania, but she has done it. But why not give her the chance to beat Charlotte at WrestleMania 39 and add another one and maybe another time? And that could be a thing. What a cool thing that would be for a superstar, that her thing is that she goes to WrestleMania every year and wins the title. It's a kind of different streak type thing we haven't seen before. And it's like, if Bianca's at WrestleMania fighting for the title, she's going to win. That's kind of her thing. I think that would be a nice, I don't think they thought that much into it. I'd like to think they might have, but that was something I think could be really unique to her.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be awesome. And kind of the feud with Bayley last year ended prematurely as well. So that I'm really excited for. Obviously coming out of Bayley's injury, should be returning around now, like you mentioned. But yeah, I think there's definitely options to go with Bianca, and I know you and I again have both interviewed her, the loveliest person. So she really does deserve it. She really does deserve it. But switching gears slightly, that was a very Michael Cole phrase, actually, switching gears. We went to what was, I think, one of the most anticipated things on the show, without doubt. Seth Rollins comes down to the ring being just the best. He's for me, he's doing the best work of his career. Absolutely brilliant in this role. Only he could pull off. His facials are brilliant. He's so over the top, but not in an annoying way. And if it is annoying, it is intentionally annoying. He's brilliant. And WWE, for me, did this perfectly. The whole presentation was perfection. Seth was in the ring and he waited a while. No one came out. People are thinking in the crowd. I was thinking at home, are they going to have Shane come out? There was that 1% of me that thought it could happen. And then the lights go out. You hear wrestling has only one royal family. Cody Rhodes comes out, and it is full AW Cody Rhodes. It's not smoke and mirrors, black hair, kind of with the mask even. It wasn't anything he was doing in WWE. It was just AEW Cody Rhodes. Came out as the American Nightmare with his belt, with his gear, with his blonde hair. Corey Graves said undesirable to undeniable. They spoke about him as the prodigal son. He did loads of his kind of AW callbacks. And it was awesome. It was absolutely brilliant. And they had not a WWE match, not an AW match, kind of somewhere in the middle. It felt like kind of a very back and forth, slow, methodical kind of Cody match mixed in with your WWE sports entertainment style stuff. He did a Stardust reference, which I loved. And yeah, it was just brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And he finished him off with, I think he ended up hitting 4 crossroads and a bionic elbow, which was just brilliant. For me, the whole presentation was awesome. Seeing Cody Rhodes, AW Cody Rhodes in a WWE ring was surreal. I was expecting him to be AW to be WWE Cody Rhodes, but he wasn't. He was full AW, and it was just surreal to see. And this could have implications for WWE for the next several years. And if I was an AW star watching that, I would think, okay, this could be something, because they treated him like the biggest deal. The match was great. Everything for me, this was, as I said, absolute perfection.
Yeah, but you used the right word. It really was. What I loved about it is that for anyone, there's obviously this tribal, silly thing mostly on social media between AEW and WWE. Yeah. But for any AEW star watching that, what they took the AEW-ness or indie-ness, whatever you want to call whatever they want in AEW of their superstars, of Cody Rhodes, put him back in WWE, then turned the volume up 10. It's like, this is what your character can be like, and still be your character, still be, that edge to it, so it's AEW or whatever you want to call it, but on the grandest stage of them all. Here is WWE's kind of AEW version of Cody Rhodes. And I just, because I had doubts. I said, we spoke last week, and I was like, I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to wait till Raw. They're going to really pull the wool over the fans' eyes. It's going to be Shane. It's going to be someone like Elias or Veer or someone really. So I could just see a Vince moment just chuckling to himself and go, I've got them again, kids. But no, they played it perfectly. And Seth, the perfect guy, because he can play that kind of surprise role, but he kind of tried to laugh it off as well. And then the match itself, if you're going to go in the ring with someone and try and mix styles, I don't think there's many people better in the world than Seth Rollins, because I think he's up his GOAT territory. He cannot, there's nothing that man cannot do. And as you say, he's doing some of the best work of his career at the moment. And Cody, they've made him a star. They've made him a star overnight. And let's be honest, this is somebody to a WWE audience, and not everybody watches WWE and AEW. So let's be hypothetical to a WWE audience who, when he left, was a mid-card kind of comedy ex-tag team act. Mm-hmm. And they brought him back, and they've made him a superstar in 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was really good. Kind of like you said, it appealed to both. So the AW the people that watch both were like, okay, cool. He's come as AW. That I like him. It's great. And I know he was divisive there, but I think even if you're an AW fan, you would have liked seeing him in kind of a WWE setting like that. And then to the AEW, to the WWE fans who don't watch AEW, you think, okay, I know this Cody Rhodes guy, but he feels like a big deal. So it appealed to both, and like you said, I think it was brilliant. They've treated him like a big deal even afterwards. He's done. I mean, the media that he's done press conferences.
When did WWE last do like a post-Mania press conference?
I can't think of anything. I genuinely can't.
In NXT UK that I was part of, but I think they were put anywhere. They were really just for the journalists there to cover any lines after the show.
Yeah.
I mean, they actually physically put out on social media and, let journalists put their snippets out. I don't think they've ever done that properly. And
it felt like, again, that mix of WWE and AEW. It was like, okay, AEW does all those press conferences after the shows. WWE like, you know what, let's do one ourselves. And it was great. And I'm really enjoying this. And I'm looking forward to what he does next. He's spoken about wanting to win the WWE title. For me, that should be kind of a year-long thing until WrestleMania next year. Win that against whoever. We'll get on talking about whatever happens with the titles. But yeah, for me, absolute perfection. Really enjoyed this. And I'm excited for Raw tonight to see what Cody does. He's going to cut a promo. For me, should open the show. I get kind of wanting to main event it. It depends. I think you either have him main event it or Roman main event it and the other one closes. That kind of will make sense. Or if you have them involved together, kind of speaking about that, do you think there's any chance the next feud is Cody Roman?
I don't, only because I don't know if they want, because I don't think Roman's losing to Cody, because I don't know losing to Roman. We'll talk about that later, but I think you want to throw Cody to a feud he's gonna win. Like, you want to build that momentum, give him some jeopardy a bit further down the line for sure. And I'd like to see a story maybe where he fails a couple of times to win the WWE Championship for whatever reason, and then gets to WrestleMania next year, does it on the big stage, and you kind of get that year-long story of his comeback. A bit like Edge, he's come back at the Rumble, then he won the Rumble the following year. You kind of get that kind of year build to it. So I don't see them mixing. I think Cody will get the floor on his own. I think he'll get the floor. And do you know what I love most? And I've watched a lot of the backstage snippets. I watched the press conference. He looks to be loving it as well, Cody. Yeah. It's like he's really kind of, I'm sort of reveling in the fact that I'm back. I'm just a wrestler. I'm not doing, I've got my producer hat on or my director hat on or whatever the term he was in AEW. He's there to be a superstar like his dad. And I think we're all going to enjoy the ride.
Yeah, completely agree. So if it's not Roman, who do you think it should be?
I don't know. Does Seth come back and do we go into a small program just to, like, he was surprised we get that kind of thing?
Well, I wouldn't hate that at all.
No, not at all, no. Because, I mean,
we never had the mixing beforehand. Yeah. So you've still got those 4 weeks, until WrestleMania Backlash, where you can have the build. That we didn't get last time. You can have the promos back and forth. You can have Cody speaking about how Dusty, like how you can have the shots of like Dusty handing him the NXT title, Seth, and you can say like Cody can say like I never had that. I never had my dad hand me the top title, something along those lines. So I definitely think that is an option, but kind of looking else, and I think maybe Edge could be cool, but he kind of looks still locked up with AJ and in his new run.
Like, Owens not got a feud now because Stone Cold, I don't think will be on Raw tonight. I'd be surprised if he's on Raw as well as WrestleMania. So he could come out, be annoyed at what happened in that heel role that, that wasn't right. I wasn't fair. I wasn't prepared for their Texas, blah, blah, blah. And so he sets it upon himself to ruin someone else's night. And that could be Kevin Owens. I mean, that could be something thing is, Cody's not been around for so long. I mean, 6 years doesn't sound that long, but there's been such a turnover of, top heavy stars in both companies that there's so many people you want him to work with. And I think Kevin Owens definitely up there. And I mean, Owens' stock has not ever been higher now as well. He's, he main evented WrestleMania with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah. It's insane. So putting them two together would be a headline grabber.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've got options as well, even if it's something we've seen. We haven't seen it in ages, basically. So,
I'm not seen the program.
Exactly. It's going to be exciting regardless. Just see him talk. And I think I was unsure about not debuting him before, but I think WWE did it right because now his first promo Raw after Mania, I'll be honest, I wasn't planning on watching the Raw after Mania, mainly because not that it wouldn't be brilliant, mainly because just like kind of trying to get myself back into that work schedule. I just thought I can't do it. But now Cody Rhodes, I'm thinking I've got to watch it. And that's the intention. So yeah, for me, brilliant choice. You'll probably get and I don't know. You and I both watch WWE shows more than we do AEW shows. So it'd be interesting to quiz some AEW fans and ask, okay, are you going to watch the show this week?
That would be interesting. Yeah.
And be like, okay, Cody's coming. Are you going to tune in and see what happens? I mean, I would be kind of eager to know, and I think WWE is kind of hoping that's the case. Probably with his AEW presentation, WWE might be thinking that that's the case. But it's going to be really interesting regardless to see kind of what he does next. And whatever he does do next, I think he would, from what he said, he's going to be him, which is really exciting, really. It is just exciting to see Cody Rhodes be Cody Rhodes.
It's just another like superstar. Like it just gives a, WrestleMania season is meant to be the end of the season. Like if we're talking in football terms, like that's the end of the season. Tonight kicks off the new season. It's like you've just signed a new multi-million-pound striker in Cody Rhodes, and it's like we're like, where do we go from here? We don't know about the belts. We don't know what Cody's going to do. We don't know. So there's so many questions going into Raw. I think the Raw after Manias over the last few years have been underwhelming slightly. There's nothing that I can't think at the top of my head. I've gone, oh, do you remember that? I have to go back further. So I'm already looking forward to this one more than I have been over past years, just to see what happens when Cody Rhodes is in the ring with a stick.
Can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. The next matchup, though, it was weird. So it was Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. Didn't main event, which again we'll get on to talking about. And it was fine. I would call it fine. It wasn't as good as Survivor Series 2018. In the match towards the end, ref bump. Ronda got a visual pin and a visual submission, but then Charlotte just hit a big boot and won.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say clean as a sheet, but it was off a big boot, which isn't really kind of Charlotte's go-to finishing move. And then kind of Charlotte just wins. Only the second time Ronda's ever been pinned in WWE, first being against Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 35. It's her first singles match since being back. Actually, no, it's not. She faced Sonya Deville. First pay-per-view singles match.
And proper singles match, let's be honest.
Exactly. Since being back, and she lost.
Yeah.
Her first singles match at WrestleMania, which she lost.
Right, yeah, I didn't thought that. Yeah.
It just wasn't what I expected it to be from an in-ring standpoint, where I thought it did under-deliver on what they delivered previously, and also kind of from the finish point of view where Charlotte won. And I don't think anyone saw that one coming. If you were to ask me to rank matches that are kind of in order of what I thought was most predictable, this might have been right up there alongside Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. But yeah, kind of what did you think about how this went down? What we saw in the end, it kind of looks like it's going to be WrestleMania Backlash. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ronda wins that. But I wouldn't have played it that way if that was the intention. I just would have had Ronda win.
Yeah, I've really struggled to get into the feud as well, which I don't really know what it is. I can't pin it down to why it's not worked as well as it should. Because I think the work they've done and some of the spots, the car park scene and her being slammed through a table and all that, good stuff. Like, WrestleMania worthy, big build-up stuff. I think that it lacked the problem that we all believe that the real beef is Becky Lynch. Like, I don't think anyone ever believed that Ronda Rousey would have chosen Charlotte Flair. Like, the beef for so long. So for me, it kind of the whole feud struggled from that point. I may be alone in that, and I'm not saying it affected the match, but in my own mind, that's how I felt. And then, the match it was a little bit flat. And I wonder if fans, again, we talk about card placing. Was it that fans were just a little bit done by that point? And when this match started to just only go a little bit flat, it felt worse because it was the first chance fans went to go, and kind of had a little bit of a breather. And that's unfortunate for them. But then at the same time, it's up to the performers, I guess, to lift that crowd again. And I don't think they quite ever did that. I do think Ronda still has that problem with character work. Like, I watched her walk to the ring and I was kind of like, there's no pageantry to Ronda Rousey. And I kind of get that's her gimmick. She's UFC. She walks to the ring and she wants to get business done. But so does Shayna Baszler. But Shayna's kind of got it a bit more. Like, you need to.
Yeah.
I always think there's just something missing in her presentation, in her eyes. Does she need a mouthpiece? I just don't know. There's something with Ronda, especially as a face, that just doesn't really work. And I think that's one of the problems in the match. Like, when you're the face, you have to carry some of the story. And I'm not sure she did that as well as she possibly could. And she possibly has done in other matches as a heel. But I'm like, just really struggled to get into this one. And then the finish, we all, as you said, we all expected her to go over. I think only Roman, Brock, and I think Drew, Corbin are the only two matches I would have said, like, well, they're winning. There's no doubt, like, they're winning. And so to Charlotte to win, it was a bit like, oh, okay. And if they're going to Backlash, I mean, I question why. Why would you not have her win at WrestleMania rather than have her win at WrestleMania Backlash? I don't know if that's. I don't know. I can't really see why they do that. So
yeah,
if something was missing from the word go with these two.
Yeah. I think it's been off to a rocky start from day dot with that awkward kind of Ronda Rousey promo. Fans just don't want to like her, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Some of the best people in wrestling are just heels that just should never be faces, and for me, Ronda is that. She's so much better as a heel. And with the way she's spoken about wrestling fans in the past, you can kind of see why. Like, she hasn't been very nice to them. And fair enough, she's entitled to that opinion, but play into that. The issue is Charlotte is also not a face.
At the end of her last run, they played into that. Yeah. And I thought that's what they'd continue with. But I think they started to do that when she came back. And then she suddenly, it was like almost week by week. She's a face now because she's facing Charlotte. Yeah. It's like they decided last minute to go, oh no, Charlotte's the heel. And obviously Charlotte is a better heel as well. But Ronda, I think she needs a mouthpiece. I just don't think she can sell as well as, especially in a babyface role, which wouldn't make sense with someone next to her. But it just doesn't work for me.
I agree. I think we do see this at WrestleMania Backlash though, and kind of looking at it, considering what we saw was the right choice to not main event, especially considering what did, which we'll get into talking about now. Stone Cold Steve Austin KO show. Wasn't much talking going on. He came down, did his whole entrance. KO said, essentially, I'm not here to talk to you. I'm here for a fight. Austin said, if you want to see me fight, have one more match. Started my career in Dallas. Let's end it in Dallas. Give me a hell yeah. And then he wrestled a no-holds-barred match. It wasn't a quick one. They fought over the arena. Austin took a suplex on the concrete. He was drinking beers throughout this. He must have had 6 or 7 beers, majority going down himself, of course. But the match was just sports entertainment brilliant. And we were talking earlier kind of about what Austin means. And he was someone before my time, but I can appreciate he's one of wrestling's biggest ever stars. And it was cool to see him back in that setting, wrestling a proper match. He took a stunner, hit several stunners, and ended up picking the win. And I think considering how hot the crowd were for this was 100% the right choice to main event the show. It was brilliant for what it was. And kudos to Owens. I think he was great in his role too.
Yeah, it had to main event. Like, for what it did, for what it meant, for where it was, it kind of, you imagine that happening and then going into Charlotte Rousey, whatever the outcome was, it'd have been an even worse version of, Rock, Hogan, and then you went into Triple H, Chris Jericho, which is a match that is a decent match, but the crowd was so spent after Hogan Rock that in Toronto that it never really gets looked upon, and you would have had that. So it made perfect sense for this main event. Did I expect to see 20 minutes from Stone Cold? No, not at all. I thought this would be a fun, segment speaking and a quick interview, a few stunners, maybe a few, rolls around the ring, for want of a better phrase, from the two of them. But to get an all-out brawl across the arena, like several suplex spots from Stone Cold, which, given he's had back, neck, and knee problems, he must be in he must have been working hard to sell this, and the trust that WWE and Steve Austin put in Kevin Owens, he must have been gone to bed that night with the biggest smile in Dallas, because that if you're signing a new contract and you go, what can you give me? There's not much more than a WrestleMania main event against his idol. We've all seen the pictures online. The stories he's told of tracking him down in an airport and getting advice from him. It's almost poetic how beautiful for Kevin Owens that moment was. And I was around obviously for the Stone Cold stuff, and I've said before I wasn't the biggest. I've always been more of a rock kind of guy, but it was so much fun just to see the what chants and him joining in it, seeing stunners, seeing him see him be well and happy and enjoying being in a wrestling match for the first time in 19 years. The truck, the beer, the stunners, they didn't miss a trick in terms of we're throwing it all out, and it continued as we'll talk about in night 2. But I think my sort of ending thought was on Kevin Owens. I just thought that's just amazing. Just imagine growing up and thinking I'm going to main event WrestleMania, but against my idol. I just think that must blow his mind.
Like you said, it was so cool for him. You could tell he was loving it.
Yeah.
It was just cool overall. It was a great way to end the show. Crowd went home really happy. I thought this was kind of a great way to bookend night 1 in Dallas. The crowd loved it. Stone Cold was great in his role, looked in brilliant shape, did some great stuff. I thought this was really, really good. Really, really good. And yeah, I really, there was nothing to complain about across night 1 over the kind of small nitpicks that we've had. I think it was overall kind of closing the chapter on this one. It was a pretty decent show.
Yeah, well, cool entrances as well. We didn't mention some of the entrances, but you had with the Hummer that came out, Bianca with the marching band. That was pretty cool as well. So they did go all out. Steph had the choir, didn't he, doing the visionary stuff. So they went pretty much all out on that as well. But yeah, I had major doubts over that night 2 because I thought they played everything perfectly, as we've said, with Cody, with Stone Cold. Bianca and Becky knocked it out of the park. And I think my main worry was, where was the mystery in night 2? Like, we were all tuning in to watch WrestleMania, but we're all tuning in to go, who's Seth's opponent? What's Stone Cold going to do? And night 2 didn't have that, but it delivered as well, which we'll get on to.
It did. So the show opened with a brilliant match between RK Bro, Street Profits, and Alpha Academy. Kind of your typical 3-way fun spot. I wouldn't call it spot fest, but there were some great spots. 2 brilliant RKOs ended it. One from Riddle from the top rope, and then one from Randy where he caught, I think it was Chad Gable, with an RKO from basically a dive from the top rope. Was brilliant stuff. It was a great way to get the crowd hot. Kind of what night 1 lacked, this is what it had. This match, crowd love RK Bro. The match was really fun. I really, really enjoyed it. And then we'll I'll get your thoughts on that, and then we'll talk a little bit about the post match.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of tag team wrestling. Like, sometimes I know WWE and Vince in particular goes in waves of not liking it and not giving it the showcase it deserves. But this is when you get it right and you get 3 unbelievable teams. Like, I'm a big fan of Street Profits, have been since NXT. I think Alpha Academy have done some great stuff in the last 6 months. And then you've got RK Bro, who I never in a million years thought would be as good as it's been. Like, when they got them together, I was kind of like, oh, yeah, okay. All right, we'll see how that goes. But Randy looks like, and he said it, he's having more fun than he's had in a very long time. And I kind of love seeing this Randy Orton. And this produced just a really fast-paced tag team match. Like you say, the spots were there. I think Angelo, without a beard, old shaved Angelo Dawkins, I noticed, thought something odd about him, going through the ropes. She had Montez Ford jump and did that kind of swinging neck breaker. And when they slow those down, you see how high Montez Ford goes. So for me, when we talk about somebody else at the end of the match, he's another name that should be, when we talk about the future of WWE, I'm all about Montez Ford. But right winners as well, because I think unbelievably there's still gas in the tank for RK Bro. The turn doesn't need to come yet, but when it does, it's going to be major. And I wonder if it might be Riddle rather than Randy as well, maybe to flip the lid on it. But yeah, that is kind of a hot tag team opener that I love.
Yeah, it was great. And then kind of the post match saw the so what should I was torn on this. So what happened? Street Profits get in the ring with RK Bro. They get their cups out, kind of toast the drink. Montez Ford points to the crowd with Gable Steveson, who's sat at ringside. He invites Gable Steveson into the ring. They all have a drink, or they go to have a drink. Chad Gable slaps the drink out of Gable Stevenson's hand. The ring clears. Chad Gable essentially gets in the ring, gets in his face, cuts a bit of a promo. Gable Steveson, keep saying Gable for both of them. Gable Steveson takes the mic off him, hits an overhead belly to belly suplex, then drinks on the outside of the ring with the Street Profits and RK Bro. Kind of a good way to establish him as that face. He had his cool WrestleMania moment. The issue is, I don't think Gable Stevenson's got a lot of charisma.
Yeah, he's young. It's the first thing I'd say. I didn't realize how young he is until I did it when I was writing about him the other day. But he's early 20s, so there is time. But I wonder, because I thought he was going to go on the mic, but there was a little bit of, I don't know, maybe even nerves. Let's give a little bit of, you're performing your first major thing in front of 70 people, the biggest night of the year. So just give the guy maybe something. He was nervous, but yeah, there was something slightly missing from his presentation last night. But I wonder if that's just because it's so brand new to the guy and he's so green to the industry, and they're going to push him big time because not only is he obviously very athletic, he's a name that mainstream know. So it's going to be a lot of learning on the job for Gable Stevenson. And he had it last night. I don't know if you noticed when he got in the ring, first of all, with the guy and started to taste drink, he had his back to the hard cam, and Randy Orton, just slightly, being the vet he is, just geared in towards the side. So it looked like he was just grabbing the circle, but what he was actually doing is like, mate, move, because the camera needs to see you. So there are things he clearly needs to learn. But it's a massive stage. Chad Gable was the perfect person to do it because he's smooth as hell. So I see what you're saying. I just wonder if it might be just first night, because I don't know where they'll place him first of all. Will it be in a tag team thing to keep him protected? We read these things that he's being pushed as the next WrestleMania main eventer. Like, how soon can we get there? Are we talking 39? Are we looking at him doing a big match at 39? I don't know, but there's a lot to do with him in a quick, short space of time.
There is, and I think we'll see how it goes. He's obviously not even had a match yet. Like you said, there is potential for him to work. And I mean, it took several years, it took really recently for us to see the charisma behind Brock Lesnar. So it's not to say that he can't get over that way. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. We will see how it goes, but I'm quite optimistic for what he does. I forgot to mention the show actually opened with Triple H cutting a bit of a promo. It was very, very short. Basically thanked the fans, left his boots in the ring after his retirement, opened the show with some pyro. I mean, there wasn't really much to it. It was a nice moment. He hugged his kids at ringside. It was kind of just a nice way to open the show, but nothing really to write home about.
I was trying to watch it, like, hoping he'd come out and he's like Madison Square Garden denim, like
denim on denim.
Yeah, because he looked a bit odd doing the whole Triple H thing in a suit. That I never think a suit suits Triple H because he's such a massive guy. They always look to Hulk burst out of it. I did think, it'd be really cool if he'd done a little heart back to that. But yeah, I mean, Trips. I think he'll be Hall of Fame next year, possibly the year after. I think next year will be The Rock, and then they'll do H at WrestleMania 40, which will be a nice touch and obviously deservedly so.
Yeah, I think it definitely, and him, great career, so happy retirement, and it was nice he got that WrestleMania kind of send-off. But next up was Bobby Lashley versus Omos, which 6 minutes, Omos was made to look great, but he lost, actually. It was Bobby Lashley that picked up the win with a couple of spears. There's not really much to say. It was decent. It was, for me, it felt longer than 6 minutes, which isn't necessarily a good thing. It kind of felt plodding at points, but I'm happy Bobby won and almost still looked good. I understood WWE's thought process with it, which is good. They made him look as strong as possible. And I was saying to my brother, again, who I was watching with at the time, if I was just a casual tuning in, I would be taken aback by Omos.
Yeah.
I would, and I understand when you see that and you see how small he made Bobby Lashley look, why WWE wants to push him.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it was kind of just a bit nothing, but it wasn't offensive by any way. And I kind of get what WWE was trying to do. Yeah,
I thought they'd go no contest for this one because I couldn't see a way where both come out, but I think they just about did it because I think Bobby, he's the WWE champion pretty much going into it because with that injury, so they have to keep him strong and they want to get Omos strong. It's always tough with those big guys because it is the movement that they struggle with because of their size. For years the Big Show kind of struggled with it and then got a way around it. And his early days in WCW, he became much more mobile because he learned how to deal with his size. And I think maybe Omos might have to do that at some point. I'm not sure if he's going to be further on the card. I guess I don't think you can do that now in 2022. Have him as an attraction in the main event. It's just wrestling's different. It doesn't work like that. So there is something to his arsenal, I suppose, he needs to learn. And again, that will come because he's still pretty new. But I think they achieved what they wanted to in this match, which is the best they could probably hope for.
Yeah, it was kind of, there's not much to report, and that will be kind of evidenced by the fact that we don't spend too long on this one. But it was kind of
talking about the 6 minutes.
It was what it was. But I'm happy Omos didn't win, and it was Bobby picking up the win. I think that was definitely the right call. Next up, and I cannot wait to talk about this, Johnny Knoxville versus Sami Zayn, which was, I don't think I've had as much fun watching a wrestling match as I have when I was watching this. It was, if you're a wrestling purist who likes good chain wrestling, good reversals, don't watch this because it just isn't going to be for you. But if you like
screaming somewhere into his pillow, aren't you?
I honestly said I would. I'm going to watch Jim Cornette's review of this because I want to see how bad it is, and just how much he loses his mind. But this match was so much fun. It was so much fun.
It was, that's what it needed to be. Like, going into it, let's be honest, it's Johnny Knoxville. Like, this isn't even Logan Paul or what's called Ball Bunny, Bad Bunny. This is Johnny Knoxville. Like, he is a 40, nearly 50 something probably actor.
I think he's 51.
There you go, 51-year-old actor who's just got to sort of, get himself thrown around the ring by Sami Zayn. Like, so they had to make more of it because he's not an athlete. He doesn't come from that background. Yes, he does. He's had years of ridiculously silly stunts on Jackass, but he's not an athlete. So they had to do something different. And what they did was basically give us like the best of Jackass in a wrestling ring, which I don't know, that might not be to everyone's taste, but it certainly sports entertained me for longer than I ever expected it to go on for as well. And you got the Wee Man body slam was like insane. Brilliant. I saw on Twitter someone put it side by side by Hogan Andre, which really made me laugh this morning. And you got all the giant mousetrap. Like, when will we ever see a giant mousetrap in any entertainment industry? Even WWE. I mean, we've seen some strange things in the past, but to see a giant mousetrap in the ring and it actually makes sense because his shoulders couldn't come up. Like, that's what freaked me out the most. I was like, that actually makes sense for him to win because he can't get his shoulders up. That's actually quite clever. Where you buy one of those for, I'm not sure, but it's why they're under the ring. The things that are under a WWE ring, you'll never know. But no, it was. I mean, I don't know what they can give Sami Zayn, but just give him more of it because he's almost like a national treasure in WWE because he just sells things so blooming well, and he was so good in this as that pesky heel, arrogant heel, stunned heel. Like, he did it all in the matter of minutes, and I just, if you just try and watch that without a smile on your face, and you just can't.
It was just so much fun. Like, the big hand slap, everything about it. You could tell Zayn was having fun. It was just car crash, wrestling. And coming out, so last time they were in Dallas, Sami Zayn was part of the ladder match and had his match with Shinsuke Nakamura at NXT. To have a performer that versatile, to be able to do both is rare. And I'm really happy for Sami because, like Kevin, recently re-signed with WWE. And when you think of it, he could have gone to AEW. Probably would have been wrestling Kenny Omega on pay-per-views. Yeah. But this is different. And it doesn't mean that it's bad just because it's not that wrestling style. This was probably the most fun I've had watching wrestling, maybe even ever, just in this match in terms of the amount I laughed, the amount I kind of caught my attention more than anything. It was honestly brilliant. Really happy for everyone. And this feud, which has gone on for months, has probably been better than it had any right to be. And this match was too. I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought kudos to all involved. It was a lot of fun.
I imagine it was Vince's wet dream as well. I mean, like, we know Vince loves a toilet gag, and like, there's plenty of them in this, like the bowling ball to, his midriff, to whatever that contraption was that booted him in the balls. It was kind of, there was so much to this that was just slapstick comedy that I can imagine Vince absolutely just laughing his head off backstage. Not to say that I wasn't, but
I was too.
It was just, I think it's a simple word, but the best word, it was just fun. It was just so much fun. And props to Johnny Knoxville because he's proper got into it. He wasn't just a celebrity coming in to flog his new film. He got into the spirit of what this business is, kind of carved his own niche into it because we've never seen anything like that before. The only thing that's vaguely near it is that hardcore match with, Raven, Big Show and Kane at WrestleMania that they went in backstage and they were in golf carts and things like that. But that was during a time when the hardcore division was full of those kind of sort of silly shenanigans. This, it's on another level, but the best kind of level.
Honestly, it was so much fun. It was so much fun, and I think that's all you can say, really. Just if you want to have a laugh, just watch this. It was, I think, about 10-15 minutes of absolute brilliance. So go and check that out. But next up was Sasha Banks and Naomi winning the SmackDown Women's Championship. It was fine. It was a decent match. Nothing really again to write home about. I just wouldn't have had Sasha Banks win.
No,
for me, so she's lost 6 straight matches at WrestleMania.
You want to make it a thing.
Yeah, there was an opportunity to do something here. And they didn't do it. She just won. And I get if that's not what you want, and she is one of your biggest female stars, so maybe you don't want to showcase her having a kind of a losing streak, which I understand. But for me, it wasn't really made into a big deal, which I don't really like. I think it was an opportunity there to make it into a big deal, where maybe next year she goes into a title match with Charlotte Flair, for example, and she wins. And it's just a huge moment. She's finally won the big one, done it at WrestleMania, won the biggest show. I think that could have been cool, but that isn't the way. And it's not to say I don't like Sasha. I love Sasha. I think she could have pulled it off really well, but I just think this wasn't the place to give her a first win, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is down also to the women's tag team titles, which are not really regarded in any.
I mean, the last time they were defended on pay-per-view before last night was WrestleMania last year. So
and we're looking at 4 teams that aren't even teams. Like they haven't even made a conceded effort to make actual teams. This was all kind of put together. You go with her. Natalia's had more partners in the last year than some have ever had in the whole career. When you think about her tag team partners, so there is an issue with that anyway. And I get what you mean. I always thought they'd give it to Sasha because I just thought it was a big show. They want to give her a moment, and this is when it's going to happen. I agree. I think there was a bigger story that they could have told later on to give her that she never wins at WrestleMania, because for a long time there was that whole thing that she never could win or retain the belt, because she always used to win the belt and then lose whatever the first defense was, and they quickly got rid of that after not really making more of it than they could, and they've kind of done that again. I suppose, like you say, she is a big star and they don't want to give her too much negativity, I suppose, to her CV, but I can see where you're coming from, where you would have had it done differently. But saying that, I didn't mind the match. I didn't mind the moment. Love the Lamborghini type car. I don't know my cars. I'm assuming that's sort of what I do. That they came out to as well. That was pretty cool. But I mean, I think Sasha will have her big moment at some point. But you're right, probably won't mean as much because she's had this kind of, forgotten is the wrong word, but kind of subdued win, I suppose it is, in the middle of a WrestleMania.
No one will remember this. And it's nothing against them. It's just compared to what else was on the card, what came before it, and that was another kind of victim of the match that came before it, everyone being so hyped. This was always going to be a little bit of a down match. But yeah, like you, it wasn't offensive. It wasn't bad at all. It just wasn't what I would have done. Next up as well, and I don't want to sound negative because I really did like it, but it was Edge versus AJ. 26 minutes this went. Longest match. Was it the longest match, or did Brock Roman go quicker? No, it was. Oh, Brock Roman was 12 minutes. I thought it was way longer. So yeah, this was 26 minutes of Edge and AJ, 2 of the best there are. And it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. It was good, but it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. It was that dream match that everyone's wanted, and it just wasn't kind of living up to the expectations that I set for it. And that, nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't brilliant. But the finish came when Damian Priest got involved, and towards the final sequence, it did get good. There were reversals. There was a beautiful suplex from the top rope to the ring apron, which looked brutal. Then the finish came. AJ was on the outside getting set up to hit a phenomenal forearm. Damian Priest comes out, who wasn't on the WrestleMania card at all, stands there, looks at AJ. AJ, kind of that distraction, goes to hit the forearm. Edge catches him with a beautiful spear from the forearm, pins him, and then Edge and Priest stand in the ring together, kind of do like a pose like that, and then walk to the back together. So it looks like they're a new stable. Again, this could be one that we see at WrestleMania Backlash. I've seen a really nice idea of people saying we could see Edge and Priest versus Finn and AJ, which could be really cool. But yeah, how did you feel about this match? Were you, in my camp, kind of that little bit disappointed?
There seems to be a problem with AJ Styles matches. like that we all really, really look forward to, like this one. Like it happened against Shinsuke Nakamura a couple of WrestleManias ago when we were all just like, oh my God, it's going to be that match. It's going to be Wrestle Kingdom all over again. And it didn't quite live up to expectations. He had that feud with Samoa Joe, who, like, I love AJ Styles, like I love him, and I love Samoa Joe, but I don't think any of their matches ever really got to the heights of maybe the stuff they did in TNA. And I kind of had the same feeling at the end of last night's match. So it's like, I don't know if it's my fault that I have such high expectations of AJ Styles and to Edge to a certain extent, that I'm always expecting, right, blow me away, Edge and AJ, and it never quite gets. Because as you say, it was a good match. It told a good story. Not sure what happened to AJ on the way in. He seemed to clip
himself, I think, on the set or something, but yeah, he started bleeding. Very strange.
But yeah, it just never quite. It stayed in level. It stayed in gear 4, never got to gear 5. I suppose is what which is, and for most people that is pretty phenomenal, to want of a better word. But these two are on another level. We talk the word dream match is probably another thing. We all sit there. It's a dream match. This expectation is so high, and it just never got to those heights, which is a shame. But it was still good, and it adds to Edge's ridiculously brilliant comeback tour, which I don't think he's had a bad moment since he's been back in WWE, which is a testament to how brilliant Edge is. The entrance as well, loved it, because I've not been completely sold on his heel turn, because I didn't know if it needed him, and I think it happened a bit too quickly to get there. But I like the entrance. I love the association with Damian Priest, because it give Priest something different. And if it's going to be a stable, I love a stable. Like WWE is lacking in stables, and if Edge wants to lead,
who would you put?
So you mentioned that. He's interesting. You mentioned that tag match. If that's a possibility, I'd have Finn stick Finn with them, because I think Finn play a little bit more into the demon character. Not say be full demon, because I think that can be a bit pantomime at times, but maybe some sort of hybrid of the Prince and the Demon that gets in this dark. Because obviously Edge is now a dark character. Damian Priest is kind of that sort of dark brooding character as well. Maybe Finn could be added to it. Rhea Ripley,
I saw that suggestion, which I do like.
She's good, gives her something, because I think she's a little bit treading water at the moment. They're stuck her now in 2 different tag teams. We know she's brilliant, got a lot of time for Rhea, but she's not ready to be placed in a title feud again and lose, because I don't think that's fair on her. So that could be somewhere she could go. I saw someone else on social, Tommaso Ciampa could be a good person to be included as well. So thing is, you could stick anyone for Edge and you'll make it work, because Edge is just brilliant. And I think Raw really needs a stable. Like, one of the things I love about AEW is that it has so many stables, because it's a good way to get a lot of people on TV as well. I think it's a great way. So yeah, that's kind of sleeper what I'm looking forward to in the next few weeks on Raw, because to see how this relationship gathers pace, and if we're going to see different people added, it's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've got options with where you want to go with this, which is really cool. You've got the ability to go for kind of your typical stable where it's all about Edge, but you've also got the ability to make it whereas like Edge is the singles guy, and you've got Damian Priest and someone else in a tag team, which could be cool. Or you've got them all as singles, and it's all about making the younger guys look good, which I think, well, you say younger, Priest is like 40. But you know what I mean? It's all about making them. And I think there's definitely options to go either way, and I'm really looking forward to it. Sean Rossap tweeted that there's someone else who is going to be reporting today who's been kind of rumored for the stable. So that'll be really cool. But yeah, I think that kind of the finish did set up another match, and I hope it delivers, because I think Edge and AJ both deserve it. And this match, again, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad match. But I think because of the expectations we all set for it, it didn't deliver.
No, I agree. I was just thinking about Ben from NXT as well. He's a bit dark and brooding, isn't he?
Yeah, and I guess he is young. Like, he's actually young.
I think that's what it'll be Edge taking the back seat in terms of wrestling and kind of guiding these knights of his own to whatever he wants to do. But yeah,
which could be great. I mean, just being associated with Edge will help. Okay, so next up on the card was Sheamus and Ridge Holland defeating the New Day in 1:40. It was bumped from night 1 due to time, when again it lasted about 5 minutes all in all with entrances, so you didn't really have to bump it. But there was no issue with them bumping it. It's a 2-night show, doesn't really matter. But yeah, this lasted 1:40. Rich Holland just won after bro kicks from Sheamus. I really thought that, and New Day came out in kind of Biggie inspired gear. They were all in the singlet as opposed to the normal gear. I was just really disappointed. It was nothing. I thought they were going to give New Day the win, and they just didn't. I was really disappointed with this.
Yeah, it awfully suffered from not being placed where it was originally being placed. So you had the problem with night 2 that had to just find somewhere to quickly stick it in. Whether or not it was meant to be that short night 1, well, I don't think we'll ever know until, a long time when Kofi tells his stories and whatever that, but we won't know. And it's a bit of a shame. I wasn't as disappointed because I wasn't, it's a bit of a throwaway tag team match. It was good to see the New Day and have that kind of homage and sort of tribute to Big E was really nice. Nice Ridge Holland and Butch. I'm going to call him Pete Dunne, but Butch to get their WrestleMania moment. But yeah, any match that goes like a minute and a half, it's like you're just sat down and you're kind of ready to go into it. And it's a bit of a shame for the performers involved, I guess. But I just think it lacked over the weekend. That was the fodder match, wasn't it? It was, if there was going to be something bumped, it was this, and therefore it kind of had to be stuck wherever it kind of, which is a bit of a shame for you think of the talent involved, especially former WWE champions and Kofi Kingston and Sheamus. But yeah, I just think it was in a difficult spot, and I didn't really in the end know where to put it.
Yeah, it was. I saw some people saying that they thought Big E was going to come down. He just broken his neck. I don't think that was ever going to happen.
Walk at the moment.
Exactly. But no, there wasn't really anything to write home about. I expect the feud to continue.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll see Butch or Pete Dunne wrestle, which should be good.
Yeah.
But next up, okay.
Where do we start?
Pat McAfee wrestled Austin Theory, and it was good. It was good. Pat McAfee's great. He is just charisma. When we spoke about Gable Steveson or Ronda Rousey, Pat McAfee's someone that gets it. He's just charisma coming out of everywhere. Such a affable guy. Really, really liked him.
At this point, choosing Seven Nation Army as a theme, genius. Because if there's a song that 70,000 people are going to sing along to, it's that. I mean, personally, as a QPR fan, I'm singing Bobby Zamora, but most people are going to be singing along to it. So whoever's decision that was, and I'm sure Pat McAfee had some say in it, because I think he's just, as you say, got it. Genius.
Yeah, and he is just, as I said, as we said, just he understands what he's there to do. Pulled off some great spots. He jumped up to the top rope. He hit a great suplex. He was just honestly brilliant. Honestly brilliant. And he just won, which was cool. And then he is in the ring and he kind of gestures to Vince McMahon, who's at ringside throughout all of this. And Vince McMahon then proceeds to take his shirt off. And he looks jacked, by the way, for a 76-year-old.
Amazing.
And he gets into the ring and a match starts between Pat McAfee and Vince McMahon. Austin Theory got involved a little bit, but Vince McMahon was just beating up Pat McAfee. 76-year-old Vince McMahon was just beating up Pat McAfee. Then the finish came. He got a football and sort of kicked it against Pat McAfee and then pinned him, which was okay. The crowd weren't having it, just weren't enjoying it. And then, it was hard to tell. Like, for me, it was a bit like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But then they're celebrating in the ring afterwards, Vince and Austin Theory, and Stone Cold Steve Austin came out. I don't know how I didn't see this coming. As soon as Vince McMahon got involved,
that's exactly what I thought as well.
But he comes down to the ring. He stunners Austin Theory, who for me I think may have one of the best sells of a stunner you've ever seen. He got some serious height on it. It was honestly brilliant. And then he goes to drink a beer with Vince, and they do this segment every 3 years. They'll go and be friends and have a beer together, and then Austin will stunner him. And that's what happened this time. But it was one of the worst sells of a stunner I've ever seen. He kicked
stunner. I mean, the two moves are so far apart.
Yeah, he kicked him in the gut. And then sort of Vince went to the floor and Austin tried to get him up, and then he sort of went to the ropes and came off the ropes and then slipped. It was, honestly, just watch it because it was horrendous. And then Vince is Austin is like, you can see him laughing because it's that bad, which I think made it better because you could tell he wasn't angry. He was just kind of laughing it off. I have no clue what to say. I laughed throughout the whole thing. I was tired during the Austin Theory Pat McAfee match. I was kind of, everyone will know this, when you're watching a wrestling show and the eyes start to go a little bit and you're like, okay, kind of wake up now. And that, I was just on the edge of my seat, like, what is happening? It was just bonkers. It was utterly bonkers. But like we've said throughout this podcast many times, thoroughly sports entertained. Really enjoyed it, to be honest. It was what it was, and for what it was, I really enjoyed it.
It was like a microcosm of the Attitude Era, but like done by people that shouldn't be doing it at their age. Because you got kind of, you remember the football spot. There was kind of things like that you had to, suspend your disbelief at some points in the Attitude Era because you're just like, okay, fine, we'll go with that. And that's kind of what that was in terms of. I think my favourite moment of it all was just as he'd won Vince, Austin Theory's music played, and Vince McMahon acted like it was Stone Cold music and went to go into acting mode, and then suddenly realised in his 70-year-old of mine that he's not as quick as he used to be. Oh no, that's not. I shouldn't react like that. Back to what I should be doing. That made me laugh. But yeah, it was. I'm like you. Like the fact that when Vince was out there, I didn't see Stone Cold coming out at some point. It's like I almost need to yell a card myself and my fandom, because it's like, obviously we're in Texas. If Stone Cold's there, any chance to make it 1999 again, they're gonna do it because that was the height of the business. That was the feud that everybody that sold it. So. What did I think of it overall? I don't know, Lou. It was just, I love Pat McAfee, love him, because as you say, I love the VT beforehand that, the old clips of him wrestling in his back garden. He gets it. He knows this business. He is this business, despite the fact that he's been this big NFL star and he's this big celebrity now. He gets it. He knows what to do. He knows how to act in it. And for anyone who saw his match with Adam Cole, shouldn't be surprised that he can go. He can go in the ring. He's, he can take spots. He can do stuff. So I was kind of surprised he won because I thought Austin Theory is the man, and I thought he'd get a great match out of him, and then Austin Theory would get a sneaky win because that's they're earmarking him as one of the future stars. But I didn't expect them to then lose to Vince in the next few minutes in what was, I don't know if you could call that a match or whatever, but to see the sight of Vince in the tank top, it's very WrestleMania-y. It's very sports entertainment, and the crowd laps it up. And I think, again, you just have to go, as I said earlier, about making a recipe of WrestleMania. It's another one of those. It's not for everyone, and I'm sure there's some AEWites out there who would be, watching that through gritted teeth, going, "I've never seen this on Dynamite or All In or whatever out like." But it's WWE, and I don't mind, and I had a lot of fun watching it.
Yeah, and I mean, I get why they've done it. Like peeling back the curtain a bit on GMS's sites, like anything that we do for Vince McMahon does well. So, so as soon as you can get him involved, it's brilliant. I get why they did it, and because of what it was, you can't announce it as a match because it wasn't a match. So you can't pre-announce it, but it's similar to the Stone Cold thing. But I really didn't mind it at all. I thought it was kind of it was bonkers, and again, one of those things you just like, what am I watching? But for what the kind of pomp and circumstance of WrestleMania was, had no issue to it. And I think it was such a nice juxtaposition for the main event, which was more serious.
Yeah. And you'll see that stun up for years to come on memes, on WrestleMania shows.
You'll see both stunners. You'll see Austin Theories is like, okay, that's how you do it. And you'll see Vince of like, okay, that's how not to do it.
And the sight of Pat laying back at the ring, just drinking after he'd been stunned as well. That's a WWE meme for life. That's up there with The Rock's surprised expression and all that. That is going to be one you see over and over again.
Again, Pat gets it. He knew where the camera was going to be. He did that. It's just brilliant. But up next was the main event, the close of the show, the biggest WrestleMania match of all time. Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar. This match was your typical big move. At one point, it looked like Roman injured his arm. not sure kind of how serious, what he's actually done. It was before the Kimura, but kind of I think that's why they did the Kimura, to kind of play that up. And then the finish came kind of out of nowhere, maybe brought on by the injury, but Roman hit a spear on Brock, picked up the win. Is now the unified, in what they're calling, Unified WWE Universal Champion. Catchy, exactly. Firstly, what did you think about this whole thing? Did the finish come out of nowhere for you too?
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah, I thought we had, at least 5 more minutes. These matches are all about the big moves, near falls, aren't they? Like, what one more move is it going to take to down Roman, or it was always going to be Brock. So I did when the 3 count hit, I was kind of okay, because I hadn't noticed the injury at that point. I didn't really see that until I saw some reports come out afterwards. So I don't know, like you say, if that played into it. I thought this was better than 34, not as good as 31 in terms of their trio of matches they've had now at WrestleMania. I mean, I always knew Brock was going to lose, obviously going into it, but I just love this Brock so much. Like the fact that he announced his own when he got into the ring, he did the own announcement because Paul Heyman did obviously Roman's. He grabbed the mic and did his own. Like, why haven't we seen this Brock in 10 years? Like, since his return, it's so good, good. I'm kind of hoping I think I read somewhere today, he's still sticking around for a couple more pay-per-views, which is just amazing because the more we see from this Brock, the better. I'm not sure where he goes because he's not going to be Roman Reigns, but that's for another discussion. But yeah, it didn't. I'm not going to say it didn't live up to our expectations because I still enjoyed it, but I did feel like there was we could have squeezed just a little bit more out of it. And I do wonder, is that because, I mean, God forbid it's not a big injury if it is an injury, because if it's
an injury, WWE is screwed.
Yeah, every egg is in that basket. So it's how they would, I don't even know what they would do. The writing would be just...
I'd stick the titles on Cody.
That's a big call.
If you've got, I don't know what you do. Yeah. I honestly don't know what. I mean, this is all us kind of guessing. Obviously, the hope is he's okay, and there's no concrete reports to say he isn't. Kind of just people guessing. But yeah, kind of this book ended the show. The finish did come out of nowhere. It was very much like, okay, cool. And then the closing visuals of him with the 2 titles. It is just cool. It's cool. He is the top star. He is Roman Reigns. We'll be facing The Rock at next year's WrestleMania if they can get him.
Did finish make you think something else was about to happen? Did you think we might get a "if you smell" at that point?
Yes. But again, it's that wrestling fan of me. Like, I knew logic would say no. Yeah. Like, just no. But that little part of me, and when he left the ring, I was like, okay, it's not going to happen. Yeah. Like, if he stayed and celebrated in the ring, I'd have been like, okay, maybe. But when he left, I was like, they're not going to have, like, Rock come out and greet him on the ramp. Like, they'll do it in the ring. But yeah, it was that little kind of wrestling fan of me where I was like, could they do it? Could they do it? But I think that, realistically, they want the match to happen, but they don't know if it is.
They're nowhere near.
You can't book that angle. But yeah, it was for me. I preferred night 1, but night 2 was still good. That was like the sports entertainment craziness. Although night 1 was 2, I really had a good time. I had a good time watching this show. It was a fun little kind of 2-night event, which I do prefer. Yeah, I had a really good time watching this, and I thought the show was pretty solid.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, people talked about WrestleMania going 2 nights, and they said, "Oh, they'll never do it. Well, it won't work. They never do it." And I think, as I said at the top of the show, I think they now worked out how to do it, because it's a much better way of watching, rather than an 8-hour event in one arena. Watching 2, 3 to 4 hours is a much better way of doing it. I felt that there was less matches anyway, generally, both nights. I don't think they packed both nights too much, which I've always said they should do, because they had a problem for a lot of years. Got to get everyone on the card. You got to get, and sometimes it just doesn't work out like that. And it's unfortunate for guys like Finn Balor and Ricochet and others that they weren't there to defend those sort of mid-card titles. But overall, it was a very fun weekend of action. I think probably the best Manias, if we include it as one, since the early 30s. I mean, 30 and 31 are great shows, and then you go into 30 especially. Yeah, I love
Was
that.
last year's good?
Last year's was okay. I think last year's was okay. I don't think it was great. I'm struggling to think what. Oh, the main event was Roman.
Both main events were great. Yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult. I mean, it definitely wasn't one of the worst ones. It was better than 35. And 35 was good as well.
It's hard because and also you're trying to cater to so many people's different tastes in terms of age, in terms of what they, and different type of matches. As we said earlier, it is hard to book a WrestleMania brilliantly. Like 30 always stands out because of the Daniel Bryan story that ran from beginning to end. It was bookended by that, and it was really a great story to tell. 31 had that brilliant ending with Seth, and had some couple of great matches, and also had Sting on it, which I don't like to talk about. So it's difficult, but I think there were very little lows in this over the weekend, and that's what I think you can ask for.
Yeah, I saw a tweet which I wanted to get up because I just think it kind of summed up this WrestleMania perfectly. So the tweet reads: "This WrestleMania felt like a new era was started in WWE, one where they almost stopped catering to indie fans and went back to the formula where they build their own stars, shuffle in mainstream stars, and bring back legends to help push new stars. I'm here for it." By the way, not a shot at the Indies or AW, but I feel like they said, you know what, AW is doing a good job appealing to that fan base. Let's pivot and do something different. And you can argue back and forth among. I mean, I'm not reading the tweet anymore. I'm saying you can argue back and forth about whether or not you think WWE is building new stars or not. I don't think they're building enough, but I can see what they're trying to do with the likes of Omos and Austin Theory and people like that, Matt Moss even. You can see what they're trying to do. And I think that tweet is right. They've just gone, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to have some fun, and we're going to have a fun time with the fans. And that is what they had. And I don't see there being any problem with that. I do really enjoy. I enjoyed this Mania. Thought it was really good fun. And if this is what Mania is going to be in future, count me in.
Mania it's funny because Mania is not always for the wrestling fans. Like, it's their showpiece of the year, but it's also the showpiece that goes to every mainstream. It crosses borders. They bring in the celebrities, so it's always a different kind of show. Yes, it celebrates the best of what we love, but also it adds in that celebrity flavor. It adds in it ups the pageantry. And I think I saw that tweet, and I exactly right. They should stick to doing what they do best. They don't need to try and they were for a long time with NXT Black and Gold. They were trying to model themselves and getting these indie stars, and there was a reason why they weren't working on the main rosters, because it's a different beast. It works different. And now NXT 2.0, who we should add, had a fantastic standard deliver as well on Saturday afternoon, apart from the main event, which is an interesting decision, Team Braun. But
I think we see him tonight.
Oh, too early, way too early.
It will happen though.
I love him. I've said that a lot tonight. There are a lot of people that I've loved, but everyone knows on Twitter that I'm a big supporter of Braun. I just don't. He's got so much potential. Just don't get it wrong. I don't want to see him in 2 months tagging in the mid card on Raw. That would just be so disheartening. But that's for another day. But I just think they've turned NXT into what they think their model is, and this is what they are. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Like, this is what WWE is, and I loved pretty much every part of WrestleMania weekend. So that's what. And that's
the thing. If you don't like this, watch AEW. If you want to watch great matches, there is no shortage of promotions putting on great work right now. But if you want the pomp and circumstance and your matches like Knoxville and Sami Zayn, watch WWE, watch WrestleMania. But Ash, overall, I think we're both in agreement. Pretty good show. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk today. If you guys want more kind of coverage of WrestleMania, head on over to GiveMeSport /WWE. We've got some great stuff on there. Ash mentioned earlier, he's just done a feature looking at what matches WWE should book for WrestleMania 39. I know, far too soon now. WWE isn't even thinking about it right now. But
feel free to that one, yeah.
We've decided to give it a go. But yeah, Ash, absolute pleasure to chat today. And hopefully we'll be chatting soon about WrestleMania Backlash, maybe, or anything that really, whatever big piece of news breaks next, because there will be something. But yeah, absolute pleasure. Just Paul, I'll let you go. Give people a shout where they can follow you on Twitter and anything.
Ash Rose UK on Twitter. So yeah, come and chat some wrestling on there. A little bit of everything else, but yeah, come and follow us and join in the fun.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this video, give us a like, give us a comment. We've really enjoyed this kind of WrestleMania coverage. It's been an absolute blast to sink our teeth into, and really enjoyed kind of this GiveMeSport WWE page. So if you've liked this video, give it a like, give this channel a subscribe, and we will catch you on the next one.
See ya.